Lieutenant Maya Chen stepped off the transport ship and looked at forward operating base Kepler for the first time. The military station sat on a rocky moon at the edge of human space. Beyond this point, the Volgan Dominion controlled everything. The base looked old and worn, like it had seen too many battles. Maya carried her single duffel bag toward the main entrance. She was 24 years old and fresh from the academy. Her uniform was crisp and new. Everything about her screamed inexperience. 2 soldiers stood guard at the entrance. They looked at her and smirked. "Another desk officer," one muttered to the other. Maya pretended not to hear. She had heard comments like that throughout her entire academy training. On paper, her record was unremarkable. Average physical scores. No family military history. Her only distinction was an odd talent for logistics and pattern recognition. The academy had assigned her to supply chain management. Inside the base, she reported to Colonel Rourke. He was a thick-built man in his 50s, with gray hair and tired eyes. He barely looked at her file. "Lieutenant Chen, logistics officer." He said it like it explained everything. "We need someone to handle inventory. Medical supplies, ammunition, food rations. Make sure the numbers match reality. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir," Maya replied. "Good. Sergeant Morrison will show you to your station. Stay out of the way of tactical operations. We have real soldiers doing real work here." The dismissal was clear. Maya followed Sergeant Morrison through narrow corridors. The base was bigger than it looked from outside. It went deep underground with multiple levels. Soldiers rushed past them, all focused on their tasks. Nobody gave Maya a second glance. Her station was a small office filled with computer screens and data pads. Morrison handed her access codes and left without another word. Maya sat down and began her work. She reviewed supply lists and inventory reports. But while her hands worked on logistics, her mind worked on something else. She accessed the base layout and studied it. She reviewed troop assignments and patrol schedules. She examined sensor logs from the past 6 months. Nobody stopped her. Nobody even noticed. After all, she was just a logistics officer doing boring paperwork days past. Maya kept to herself and did her assigned work. But she also kept watching and learning. She noticed that 3rd Squad always ran out of ammunition before other units. She discovered that medical supplies for the East Wing took 2 hours longer to arrive than supplies for the West Wing. She found inefficiencies everywhere. She wrote reports with suggestions for improvement. She submitted them through proper channels. Nobody responded. The veteran soldiers treated her like furniture. In the mess hall, conversations stopped when she sat down. During briefings she was allowed to attend, officers spoke over her. When she asked questions, they gave short, annoyed answers. Maya understood. She was a rookie in a combat zone. She had to prove herself before anyone would listen. But how could she prove herself counting supply boxes? On her 8th day at the base, alarms blared through the corridors. Maya rushed to the command center along with everyone else. Colonel Rourke stood at the central display with his senior officers around him. Volgan patrol ship detected. Sector 7. Single vessel. Standard configuration. The tactical officer pulled up sensor data. Maya positioned herself at the back of the room where she could see the displays, but stay out of the way. "Probably just a routine patrol," the tactical officer said. "They run these sweeps every few weeks. Nothing unusual." But Maya stared at the data and felt something wrong. She pulled out her datapad and accessed the sensor logs she had been studying. She compared the current patrol route with previous Volgan movements. Her heart beat faster. This was not routine. The patrol ship was moving in a specific pattern. It lingered at certain points for exact amounts of time. Maya pulled up more data. She mapped the patrol route over their defense grid. The Volgan ship was scanning their defenses. Not randomly. Systematically. It was identifying weak points in their sensor coverage. It was mapping response times. It was preparing for something bigger. Maya's hand shook as she worked through the data. She ran probability calculations. She compared the pattern to known Volgan military tactics from the Academy database. Everything pointed to one conclusion. This patrol was not routine. It was reconnaissance for a coming attack. She looked up at the senior officers. They were already dismissing the alert and returning to other duties. The patrol ship had left the sector. To them, the incident was over. Maya knew she should stay quiet. She was a rookie. She had no tactical training. She could be completely wrong. If she spoke up and was wrong, she would be laughed out of the base. But if she was right and stayed silent, everyone would die. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Colonel Rourke, sir. I need to report something." The room went quiet. Officers turned to look at her. Colonel Rourke's expression was not welcoming. "Lieutenant Chen, unless this is about missing medical supplies, now is not the time." "Sir, that patrol ship was not routine. It was scanning our defenses. If I'm reading the pattern correctly, they're preparing for a large-scale attack. Soon, maybe within 24 hours. The tactical officer laughed. Others joined him. Even Colonel Rourke looked annoyed rather than concerned. "Lieutenant, you've been here 8 days? You're a logistics officer. Leave tactical analysis to trained personnel. Sir, please, just look at the data. The patrol route matches pre-attack reconnaissance patterns from dismissed. Lieutenant, return to your station." Aya felt her face burn with embarrassment. Every officer in the room was looking at her with contempt or amusement. She had just confirmed everything they thought about her. The clueless rookie who did not know her place. She returned to her small office and sat in the dark. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was seeing patterns that did not exist. Maybe her analysis was completely wrong. But she pulled up the data again and ran through it one more time. Then another time, and another. Every calculation gave the same result. The Volgan were coming. And when they arrived, forward operating base Kepler would not be ready. Part 2, when protocol fails. Maya sat in her office for 2 hours after the humiliating dismissal. She ran the calculations again and again. Every analysis pointed to the same conclusion. The Volgan were preparing to attack. She had maybe 24 hours, possibly less. She thought about staying quiet, keeping her head down, protecting what little reputation she had left. Nobody would blame her if she said nothing. She had already tried to warn them. They had refused to listen, but soldiers would die. Maybe everyone on the base would die? Maya made her decision. She would break protocol one more time. If it ended her career, so be it. She gathered all her data into a single report. She organized it carefully, highlighting the most important patterns. Then she walked directly to Colonel Rourke's private office. His assistant tried to stop her. "The colonel is busy. You need an appointment." "This cannot wait," Maya said, and pushed past her. Colonel Rourke looked up from his desk, anger flashing across his face. "Lieutenant Chen, you are way out of line." "Sir, please. 5 minutes. Just look at this data." "I already told you, Colonel. I know I'm just a logistics officer. I know I've been here barely a week. But please, look at this with your own eyes. If I'm wrong, I'll request an immediate transfer. You'll never see me again." Something in her voice made him stop. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was certainty. He took the data pad from her hands. Maya stood at attention while he reviewed her analysis. She watched his expression change from annoyance to concentration to concern. "This pattern here," he pointed at the screen. "You're saying this indicates they were mapping our sensor blind spots?" "Yes, sir. And this timing pattern suggests they're coordinating with other units we haven't detected yet." "Sir, they're not sending scouts. They're preparing an invasion force." Rourke was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated his communicator. "All senior officers to the command center. Immediate meeting." 20 minutes later, Maya stood in front of the senior staff again. This time, Colonel Rourke presented her analysis himself. The reaction was still skeptical. "This is thin evidence," the tactical officer said. "We could be raising alarm over nothing, or we could be preparing for an attack that will kill everyone here," Rourke replied. "Lieutenant Chen's analysis may be unconventional, but it's thorough. We raise alert level 2-3. Begin defensive preparations." The order went out. Throughout the base, soldiers scrambled to battle stations. Weapon systems powered up. Shield generators engaged. Supply teams moved ammunition to strategic positions, and everywhere soldiers muttered about false alarms and wasted effort. Word spread quickly about the rookie lieutenant whose paranoid analysis had disrupted normal operations. Maya felt hostile stares wherever she walked. She returned to her station and continued monitoring sensor data. If she was wrong, her career was finished. But she could not shake the feeling that she was right. The patterns were too clear. For hours passed. Then 6. Nothing happened. Maya checked and rechecked her calculations. Had she made a mistake? The base commander called her to the command center. Senior officers stood around looking annoyed. Colonel Rourke's expression was carefully neutral. Lieutenant Chen, the tactical officer, said coldly, "Your predicted attack window is closing. Perhaps you would like to revise." "Your assessment?" Maya looked at the sensor displays. Then she saw it. A flicker. Something at the edge of their detection range. "There," she pointed. "Check that sector." The sensor operator expanded the view. His face went pale. Multiple contacts. 35 ships emerging from slipspace. The command center exploded into activity. Alarms blared throughout the base. The Volgan fleet had arrived exactly where Maya predicted. All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. The first wave of Volgan warships opened fire. Energy beams and missiles hammered the base shields. The entire structure shook with each impact. Explosions echoed through the corridors. Maya gripped her console as the base rocked around her. Through the displays, she watched the Volgan attack unfold. It was coordinated and precise. They were targeting specific points in the defense grid. The exact weak points their scout ship had identified. If Maya had not raised the alarm, those weak points would have been completely undefended. The first volley would have breached the base shields. The second volley would have destroyed critical systems. The third would have killed everyone inside. Instead, defenses held. Barely. "Shield strength at 60%, someone called out. "Return fire. Target their lead ships." Human weapons fired back. The space around the base lit up with energy beams and explosions, but the Volgan had overwhelming numbers. For every ship the humans damaged, 3 more moved into position, their landing ground forces. Assault teams hitting sections 3, 7, and 12. The battle moved inside the base. Maya watched tactical displays show Volgan soldiers pushing through outer corridors. Human defenders fell back, fighting for every meter. Casualties mounted. The medical officer's voice came over the command channel requesting more supplies. Maya immediately routed emergency medical equipment to the fight zones. At least logistics was something she could do. Then an explosion rocked the command center. Part of the ceiling collapsed. Maya was thrown to the floor. When she looked up, she saw Colonel Rourke lying near a damaged console. Blood spread across his uniform medic. Someone shouted. Medical personnel rushed in, but Maya could see the wound was serious. Shrapnel had torn through Rourke's side. They stabilized him and carried him away on a stretcher. The senior tactical officer took command. But within minutes, he was called to lead a critical defense point personally. The communications officer left to coordinate scattered units. One by one, senior officers departed to handle desperate situations throughout the base. Maya found herself alone in the command center with 2 junior technicians. All the tactical displays remained active. Communication channels from a dozen firefights filled the air with chaos. Someone needed to coordinate everything. Someone needed to be in command. Maya looked at the tactical displays. She saw the full battlefield. She saw patterns in the Volgan attack. She saw opportunities the scattered, human defenders could not see from their positions. She took a deep breath and activated the main command channel. "All units, this is Lieutenant Chen in Command Center. I'm coordinating defense efforts. Report your positions." There was a pause. Then responses started coming in. Confused, uncertain, but they responded. Maya studied the displays. The Volgan were pushing hard toward the main defensive perimeter. Almost too hard. She pulled up base schematics and compared them to enemy movements. Then she saw it. the pattern she was trained to see. "All units, listen carefully," she said. "They're not trying to break through. They're forcing us to concentrate at the main gate. Check your sensors. Look for small teams moving towards secondary targets," confirmed a squad leader responded. "I have enemy contacts moving toward research sublevel. They're trying to avoid detection." Maya's mind raced. The Vulcan were not trying to destroy the base. They were trying to capture it. Specifically, they wanted the research facility where humanity had been studying captured Vulcan technology. She made a decision that seemed insane, but the pattern was clear. All units fall back from main perimeter. Concentrate defenses around research sublevel 3. Move now. What? Voices responded in disbelief. "We're abandoning our strongest position? The main gate is a trap. They want you there. Trust me, fall back now." For a moment, nobody moved. They had no reason to trust a rookie logistics officer giving tactical orders. Then someone said, "She called the attack. Maybe she knows something." Units began falling back. Soldiers retreated from the main defensive perimeter and repositioned around the research levels. 3 minutes later, a massive energy weapon fired from the Vulcan carrier ship. It struck the main gate with enough power to vaporize everything within 50 meters. If Maya had not ordered the retreat, every soldier defending that position would have died instantly. The command channel fell silent. Then voices started coming back, shaken but alive. "Orders, Lieutenant." Maya looked at the battlefield displays. The pattern was changing. Now she needed to figure out what came next. Part 3. The unorthodox commander. Maya stared at the tactical displays in the command center. 12 firefights were happening simultaneously throughout the base. The Vulcan had deployed hundreds of ground troops. Human defenders were outnumbered 3-1. She had no formal tactical training. She had never commanded troops in combat. But she had something else. She could see patterns. She could predict movements by understanding objectives. The Vulcan wanted the research facility intact. That meant they could not use heavy weapons in certain areas. That was a weakness Maya could exploit. 3rd and 5th squads fall back to Junction 17. "Seal the blast doors behind you, Lieutenant. That junction leads directly to... I know what it leads to. Trust me. Move now." The squads obeyed. They retreated through narrow corridors and sealed the heavy blast doors. 30 seconds later, a Vulcan assault team rushed into the junction. The sealed doors trapped them in a dead end. Human forces attacked from secured positions above and behind them. The Vulcan team was eliminated without human casualties. "Good work," Maya said over the command channel. 6th Squad. Prepare to repeat that maneuver at Junction 23. She was turning the base itself into a weapon. The Vulcan had superior firepower, but Maya knew every corridor and ventilation shaft. She knew which doors could be sealed remotely. She knew which sections could be depressurized. She knew which paths led to traps. More importantly, she could see the entire battlefield at once. Individual squad leaders could only see their immediate area. Maya saw everything. She could coordinate attacks the enemy would not expect. 2nd Squad, enemy unit approaching your position from the north. "We see them, Lieutenant. Could let them pass." "Another unit is coming from the south in 45 seconds. We take them both at the same time." "Understood," Maya counted down in her head. When both enemy units were in position, she gave the order. Human forces attacked from 3 directions simultaneously. The confused Vulcan soldiers were caught in crossfire. Another enemy team eliminated. Across the base. Soldiers who had dismissed Maya hours ago now followed her orders without question. Because her orders kept them alive, the Vulcan commander grew frustrated. His forces had overwhelming advantages in numbers and firepower. But somehow, this human base refused to break. His assault teams kept walking into traps. His coordinated attacks became separated and destroyed piecemeal. He did not understand that he was no longer fighting standard military tactics. He was fighting against someone who saw warfare as pure problem-solving. Maya noticed something in the communication patterns. The Vulcan units were receiving constant updates from their command ship. That meant the enemy commander was coordinating everything from orbit. She pulled up sensor data on the Vulcan fleet. She identified the command ship by its position and communication emissions. It was hanging back beyond the range of the base's damaged weapons, safe from attack, while it directed ground forces. But that position meant something else. The command ship needed line of sight to communicate with all ground units. It could not hide behind other vessels or planets. It was predictable. That was another weakness. Engineering? What weapons do we have left? 3 missile tubes still operational. But the command ship is out of range. I'm not trying to destroy it. I need to deploy a chaff cloud. Can we do that? Chaff cloud. Lieutenant, that won't damage anything. I know. Can we do it? Yes, but it's a waste of a missile, deployed at these coordinates. Trigger at optimal spread for maximum line of sight disruption. The engineer looked at the coordinates Maya sent. That's right in front of their command ship. The chaff will block their communication with ground forces. Maybe 90 seconds before they can adjust and re-establish contact. 90 seconds is enough. Do it. The missile launched. The Vulcan Point defense systems tried to intercept it, but the missile was not aimed at any ship. It detonated in space between the command ship and the base, releasing a cloud of reflective particles that scattered communication signals. Instantly, Vulcan ground units became confused. Without constant updates from their commander, squad leaders had to make their own decisions. Some units halted. Others continued previous orders that no longer made sense. Coordination fell apart. All units, this is our chance. Execute attack pattern Delta. Hit them now while they're confused. Maya had prepared this. Over the past hour, she had positioned forces throughout the base, not to defend, but to attack. Now she unleashed them all at once. Human soldiers struck from unexpected directions. They hit Vulcan units that suddenly had no support and no new orders. They exploited confusion with brutal efficiency. The Vulcan ground commander tried to adapt without guidance from above. He committed his reserve forces to what looked like a weak point in human defenses. He pushed his troops forward aggressively. Maya watched him make the mistake. She had left that weak point deliberately. It was bait. Seal sections 12 through 15. Depressurize corridor 9. The Vulcan reserves rushed into the corridor. Blast doors slammed shut behind them. Atmosphere vented into space. The alien soldiers in their armored suits survived the depressurization, but they were now trapped with no escape route. Human forces fired through the sealed doors from secured positions. The trapped Vulcan could not advance or retreat. Within minutes, the entire reserve force was eliminated. 90 seconds passed. Vulcan communications restored. But the ground commander found himself in disaster. Half his forces were dead or trapped. The other half were pinned down in defensive positions. The attack had completely failed. He sent an emergency message to the command ship. Request to withdraw ground forces immediately. The Vulcan fleet commander looked at the tactical situation in disbelief. 30 warships had been held off by a single human base. Ground forces with overwhelming numbers had been defeated by inferior defenders. All because of one human commander who seemed to predict every move. He made the decision. Continue the assault and risk losing more ships and soldiers, or withdraw? And face questions about how one human base achieved this victory? The Vulcan chose survival over pride. The fleet began pulling back. Transport ships descended to recover surviving ground forces. The attack was over. But before the fleet jumped to slipspace, the Vulcan commander sent one final message. It was addressed to Forward Operating Base Kepler. The translation came through clearly. In the name of honor, we request the name of the human commander who defeated us this day. In the command center, Maya stared at the message. Round her, junior officers looked at her with expressions of awe and disbelief. She had done it. A rookie logistics officer with 8 days of experience had just defeated a Vulcan invasion force. The command channel crackled. Colonel Rourke's voice came through, weak but alive from the medical bay. Tell them, he said. Tell them who saved this base. Maya took a shaky breath. Her hands were trembling from adrenaline and exhaustion. She activated the communication system. This is Lieutenant Maya Chen, United Earth Defense Force. We accept your withdrawal. The Volgan ships vanished into slipspace. The battle was over. Maya collapsed into a chair. All around her, alert sirens finally went silent. The base was still standing. It survived. Voices flooded the command channel. Soldiers calling her name, thanking her, asking if she was all right. These same people who had ignored her existence hours ago were now treating her like a hero. Maya did not feel like a hero. She felt exhausted and terrified and relieved all at once. She had just made dozens of life and death decisions. Some soldiers had still died following her orders. She would have to live with that, but the base had survived. That was what mattered. Colonel Rourke returned to the command center an hour later, heavily bandaged, but refusing to stay in medical. He looked at Maya with new respect. Lieutenant, that was the most unorthodox defense I've ever seen. You broke every tactical rule in the book. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know what else to. I'm not criticizing you. I'm thanking you. Those rules would have gotten us all killed. You saved this base. News of the battle spread quickly through military communication networks. Other bases wanted to know how forward operating base Kepler had survived such overwhelming odds. Intelligence officers wanted to study Maya's tactics. And across space, in the Volgan Empire, commanders were discussing the rookie human officer who had defeated them. In their warrior culture, forcing an enemy to retreat through skill was the highest form of honor. Maya Chen had become something she never expected. She had become a legend. Part 4. The Price of Victory, 3 days after the battle. Forward operating base, Kepler was still recovering. Repair crews worked around the clock fixing damaged systems. Medical teams treated wounded soldiers. Everyone moved through corridors that still showed scorch marks and blast damage. Maya walked through the base and felt people watching her. Soldiers stopped to salute. Junior officers asked for her advice. Even senior staff treated her differently. The rookie logistics officer had become someone important overnight. She hated it. In her small office, Maya reviewed casualty reports. 23 soldiers had died during the battle. Another 47 were wounded. She remembered every order she had given that led to those casualties. The faces of the dead haunted her sleep. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Sergeant Morrison entered, same sergeant who had shown her to this office on her first day with barely concealed contempt. Now he stood at respectful attention. Lieutenant Chen, Colonel Rourke requests your presence in the command center. Fleet Command is calling in for your debriefing. Maya followed Morrison through the corridors. Other soldiers nodded to her as she passed. Some whispered to their friends. Everyone knew who she was now. In the command center, Colonel Rourke waited with his senior staff. A large display screen showed Admiral Keating from Fleet Command headquarters. Behind him, several other high-ranking officers watched with interest. Lieutenant Chen, Admiral Keating said, your report on the Volgan attack has created quite a stir. We'd like to hear your tactical analysis directly. For the next hour, Maya explained her decisions. She walked them through her pattern recognition of the initial scout ship. She described how she identified the Volgan objective and adapted defenses accordingly. She detailed each tactical choice during the battle. The senior officers listened in silence. When she finished, Admiral Keating leaned forward. Lieutenant, you broke nearly every standard tactical procedure we teach. You abandoned fortified positions. You deliberately trapped enemy forces in areas that put your own infrastructure at risk. You coordinated attacks while outnumbered 3-1. By conventional standards, your decisions were reckless. Maya felt her heart sink. Was this a reprimand? However, the Admiral continued, every unconventional choice you made was correct for the situation. You understood what the enemy wanted and used that against them. You turned disadvantages into advantages. You achieved something remarkable. Do you understand why your tactics worked? Maya thought carefully before answering. Sir, I think it's because I didn't know the proper way to fight. I only knew how to solve problems. I saw the battle as a system with inputs and outputs. The Volgan had advantages in firepower and numbers, but they also had constraints. They wanted the research facility intact. They relied on coordination from their command ship. Once I identified their constraints, I knew how to exploit them. Exactly, Admiral Keating said. You fought without preconceptions. That made you unpredictable. The Vulcan commander expected standard military responses. He gave him something completely different. Another officer spoke up. The question is whether this approach can be replicated. Was this a unique situation, or have we discovered a new tactical methodology? I don't know, sir, Maya admitted. I just did what made sense at the time. The debriefing continued for another hour. They questioned every decision she made. They analyzed her communication patterns and coordination methods. They were trying to understand if Maya's success was luck, genius, or something that could be taught to other officers. Finally, Admiral Keating ended the session. Lieutenant Chen, we'll be recommending you for several commendations. Your actions saved hundreds of lives. We'll also be considering your promotion and reassignment to a position that better utilizes your unique talents. After the call ended, Colonel Rourke gestured for Maya to stay behind. The other officers left the command center. How are you holding it? He asked quietly. I'm fine, sir. It's not what I asked. I've commanded in combat for 20 years. I know what it does to you, especially the first time. Maya was silent for a moment. Then the words came out. 23 soldiers died, sir. I keep thinking about the orders I gave. What if I had done something different? What if I had been faster or smarter? Could I have saved them? Rourke nodded slowly. Every commander asks those questions. The answer is, you'll never know. You made the best decisions you could with the information you had. Because of you, hundreds of others survived. But yes, people died. That's the burden of command. It never gets easier. Does it get better? The guilt? No, you just learn to carry it. And you honor the dead by continuing to do your job as well as you can. He paused. The Vulcan message has spread through the galactic community. Other species are talking about you. The human who defeated a superior force through pure tactical thinking. You've become famous, Lieutenant. Maya felt uncomfortable with that idea. I didn't do this for fame, sir. I just wanted to keep people alive. I know. It's what makes you different from glory-seeking officers. But fame comes whether you want it or not. You need to be prepared for what happens next. What happens next, sir? Fleet Command will offer you promotions, prestigious assignments. They'll want to study your methods. Other bases will request you as their tactical advisor. You'll have opportunities most officers spend entire careers trying to achieve. Rourke looked at her carefully. The question is, what do you want? Maya thought about that. What did she want? A week ago, she would have said she wanted respect. To be taken seriously instead of dismissed as a rookie. Now she had that respect. And she was not sure she liked it. Permission to speak freely, sir? Always. I don't want to be a combat officer. I don't want to command troops in battle. Yes, we won. But I spent the entire battle terrified I was making mistakes that would get people killed. Every time I gave an order, I was guessing. I was seeing patterns and hoping I was right. That's not how battles should be fought. And what do you want to do? I want to prevent battles from happening. I'm good at seeing patterns before they become problems. I spotted the Vulcan attack because I was looking at data nobody else bothered to analyze. What if that's what I do? What if I look for threats before they develop? Identify conflicts before they start. Maybe I can stop wars instead of fighting them, Rourke smiled. That's a worthy goal, Lieutenant. And probably more valuable than another tactical officer. I'll recommend it to Fleet Command. Over the next few days, more messages arrived. The Vulcan commander who had withdrawn his forces sent a formal commendation. In their culture, worthy opponents were honored. Maya's name would be recorded in Vulcan military history. Other alien species took notice too. The Centauri Federation sent diplomatic messages praising the defensive action. The Orion Collective requested detailed tactical reports. Everyone wanted to know about the human who had defeated a superior force through unconventional thinking. Maya gave interviews to military intelligence. She wrote reports on pattern recognition and threat assessment. She tried to explain her thought process in ways others could, understand and replicate, but she also walked through the memorial service for the 23 soldiers who had died. She stood at attention while their names were read. She met with families who came to collect personal effects. Each meeting was a reminder of the cost of victory. A week after the battle, Admiral Keating sent her official orders. Maya was promoted to captain. She was assigned to fleet intelligence as a strategic analysis officer. Her job would be to monitor potential threats across human space and identify conflicts before they escalated. It was exactly what she had asked for. On her last day at Forward Operating Base Kepler, soldiers lined up to say goodbye. The same people who had ignored her 2 weeks ago now treated her like a hero. They asked her to sign photos. They thanked her for saving their lives. Sergeant Morrison approached her at the transport ship. "Captain Chen, it's been an honor serving with you." "Thank you, Sergeant. I'm sorry I doubted myself so much at the beginning. We're the ones who should apologize. We judged you before you had a chance to prove yourself. We were wrong. You're the best officer I've ever served under." Maya boarded the transport that would take her to Fleet Command Headquarters. As the ship lifted off, she looked down at Forward Operating Base Kepler, a place that had tested her in ways she never imagined, a place where she had stopped being a rookie and became something else. Not a warrior, not a hero, but someone who understood that the greatest victories were the battles you prevented from happening at all. Part 5. The legend's true purpose. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Forward Operating Base Kepler. Captain Maya Chen sat in a small office at Fleet Intelligence Headquarters, surrounded by data screens and analysis reports. To anyone looking in, it would seem like she had returned to exactly where she started. A quiet office job far from the action. But everything had changed. Maya's screens displayed information from across human space and beyond. Trade routes, patrol schedules, diplomatic communications, sensor logs from hundreds of outposts. She was looking for patterns. Not just military patterns, but economic, social, political patterns that might indicate coming conflicts. Her assistant, Lieutenant Park, entered with morning reports. "Captain, we have the analysis you requested on the Draconis sector trade disruptions." Maya reviewed the data. Over the past 3 months, shipping traffic between human colonies and Draconis worlds had decreased by 18%. It looked like a natural economic fluctuation. But Maya saw something else. She pulled up diplomatic communications, cross-referenced them with Draconis military exercises, compared them to historical patterns from previous conflicts. "This isn't about trade," she said quietly. "The Draconis are preparing for territorial expansion. They're creating economic pressure to test how we'll respond. If we don't react, they'll interpret it as weakness. Should I alert Fleet Command? Not yet. Let me confirm something first." Maya spent the next 4 hours diving deeper into the data. She found connections others had missed. A pattern of resource stockpiling by Draconis military bases near the border. Changes in their patrol routes that looked random but actually positioned forces for a coordinated push. Communications between Draconis colonies in border regions, showing increased military recruitment. All signs pointed to an expansion attempt within the next 2 months. It would not be a full invasion, just a push into contested territory to claim a few resource-rich systems. The Draconis would bet that humanity would not risk major war over a few minor border adjustments. Maya wrote her report and sent it to Admiral Keating. She included specific predictions about timing, targets, and Draconis objectives. She also included recommendations for diplomatic and military responses that would discourage the expansion without triggering open war. 2 days later, Admiral Keating called her for a meeting. She expected a standard debriefing. Instead, she found the Admiral meeting with the Secretary of Defense and several ambassadors. "Captain Chen," the Secretary said, "your analysis of the Draconis situation has created significant discussion. You're predicting a major territorial move based on trade fluctuations and patrol patterns. That's a serious claim." "Yes, sir. The evidence is strong. The Draconis are testing our responses systematically. Every action they've taken in the past 3 months follows a clear escalation pattern." One of the ambassadors spoke up. "If you're right, we need to respond carefully. But if you're wrong, aggressive positioning on our part could trigger the very conflict you're trying to prevent." Maya had expected this concern. Sir, I recommend a measured response. Increase patrols in predicted target systems, but frame it as routine security operations. Open diplomatic channels emphasizing mutual economic benefits of stable borders. Show strength without aggression. The Draconis will recognize we've anticipated their move without us explicitly accusing them of planning anything. And if they proceed anyway, they won't, sir. The expansion only made sense if we were unprepared. Once they see we're ready, the cost-benefit calculation changes. They'll postpone or cancel the operation. Admiral Keating looked at the secretary. Sir, Captain Chen's tactical analysis at Kepler proved accurate under extreme pressure. I trust her strategic analysis now. The secretary was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Proceed with Captain Chen's recommendations. Quietly increase border patrols. Initiate diplomatic channels. Let's see if this prevents the conflict she's predicting. Over the next 6 weeks, humanity implemented Maya's recommendations. Fleet units repositioned to cover vulnerable systems. Diplomats opened dialogue about border stabilization and trade agreements. The moves were subtle, but unmistakable to anyone watching closely. The Dracona's military exercises suddenly shifted. Training operations moved away from border regions. Resource stockpiling slowed. Diplomatic communications became more cooperative. The expansion never happened. Most people never knew it had been planned. Only a small group of intelligence officers and diplomats understood that Maya had identified and prevented a conflict before it could start. No battles were fought. No ships were destroyed. No soldiers died. It was not dramatic or exciting, but it was exactly what Maya wanted to achieve. Word of her success spread quietly through intelligence and diplomatic communities. Other pattern recognition specialists started using her methodologies. Fleet intelligence began coordinating more closely with diplomatic corps, looking for pre-conflict indicators. Maya trained other analysts in her techniques. She taught them to look beyond obvious military movements to the underlying patterns of intention and preparation. She showed them how economic data, social media traffic, and diplomatic language could reveal coming conflicts months in advance. Her office received requests from across human space and even from allied alien species. The Centauri Federation asked for her analysis of potential Orion collective expansion. The Volgan Empire, her former enemies, requested intelligence sharing protocols for mutual threat assessment. The Volgan request surprised everyone, except Maya. She understood their perspective. They had fought her and lost, but they respected competence. They recognized that preventing conflicts benefited everyone, even former enemies. She participated in secure communications with Volgan intelligence officers. They shared data on mutual threats. The species that had nearly killed her 6 months ago became partners in maintaining galactic stability. One day, Admiral Keating visited her office personally. Captain Chen, I have a question. You could have any command position you want. Tactical officer on a flagship. Commander of your own battle group. Everyone wants the officer who saved Kepler. Why do you choose to sit in this office analyzing data? Maya gestured at her screens showing information from across the galaxy. Because this is where I can do the most good, sir. Yes, I won a battle. 23 soldiers still died. If I had identified the threat even earlier, maybe that battle never happens. Maybe those soldiers are still alive. You can't prevent every conflict. No, sir? But I can try. Every war I prevent is hundreds or thousands of lives saved. Every conflict I de-escalate before it becomes violent is a victory. It's not dramatic. Nobody will make legends about the analysts who spotted trouble in trade data. But the soldiers who don't have to fight, the families who don't lose loved ones, they'll never know I helped them, and that's fine. Admiral Keating smiled. You know, when I first read reports about the Battle of Kepler, I thought we had discovered a brilliant tactical commander. I was wrong. We discovered something more valuable. Someone who understands that the greatest military victories are the ones that never need to be fought. That's my goal, sir. Keep doing this work until I'm not needed anymore. Until humanity and our neighbors solve disputes with words instead of weapons. An optimistic view. Maybe, but somebody has to try. Maya returned to her data screens after the Admiral left. She was tracking early signs of tension in the Vega sector. Nothing urgent yet, just unusual patterns in mineral extraction rights negotiations. It might be nothing. Or it might be the beginning of a dispute that could escalate into armed conflict in 6 to 8 months if left unaddressed. She began her analysis, diving deep into the data, looking for the patterns others would miss, finding the connections that would reveal intention before it became action. In the command centers of warships and military bases across human space, officers studied the tactical decisions of Captain Maya Chen at the Battle of Kepler. They analyzed her unorthodox defensive strategy. They tried to understand her pattern recognition methodology. They wanted to replicate her success in combat, but they were looking at the wrong lesson. Maya's greatest achievement was not the battle she won. It was all the battles she prevented afterward. Conflicts that never happened because someone was watching the patterns and intervening. Before violence became inevitable. On paper, Captain Maya Chen was a mid-level intelligence analyst at Fleet Command Headquarters. She filed reports, attended meetings, and trained junior officers. Nothing remarkable by conventional standards, but across human space, and in the diplomatic channels of a dozen alien species, her analysis prevented conflicts monthly. Trade disputes that would have become shooting wars were resolved peacefully. Territorial tensions that would have erupted into violence were de-escalated through careful positioning and diplomacy. Resource conflicts that would have cost thousands of lives were mediated, for forces mobilized. The soldiers who didn't fight never knew her name. The families who didn't lose loved ones never thanked her. The diplomats who resolved disputes using her intelligence rarely acknowledged the source. Maya preferred it that way. She had been called a legend once, after the Battle of Kepler. She had proven that an inexperienced rookie could become a tactical genius when circumstances demanded it. But the real legend was quieter. The analyst who saw patterns in trade data and prevented wars. The intelligence officer who understood that violence was often predictable and therefore preventable. The woman who chose prevention over glory. On paper, she was just an analyst. But to those who knew the truth, Captain Maya Chen had become something greater than a war hero. She had become a guardian of peace, fighting battles no one else could see, winning victories that would never be celebrated, and somewhere in the quiet of her office, surrounded by data streams from across the galaxy, Maya Chen smiled and continued her work, because this was where she belonged. Not on battlefields commanding troops, but here in the patterns and data, finding threats before they emerged and stopping wars before they began. The legend was not about the battle she won. It was about all the battles she made sure never needed to be fought.